This is Brent Jensen. You're listening to No Sleep Till Sudbury, the show where we talk about the music that makes your skin vibrate. The show is brought to you by Pariah Pickups. What you want, what you need, what you love from the heart of Detroit, Rock City. Check them out on pariahpickups.com. The show is also brought to you by Fleming Properties. Steve Fleming is one of my best pals, and if you're looking to buy or sell your home in Canada or the US, reach out to Steve at flemingproperties.com. And lastly, do not forget to check out Thursday Night Record Club on the Brent Jensen Music YouTube channel. All right, today on No Sleep Till Sudbury, my guest is veteran Canadian musician and Whiskey Jack bandleader, Mr. Duncan Fremlin. Duncan and his band were regulars on the Tommy Hunter show back in the day, and they were also the backup band for Stompin Tom Connors on his nationwide tours of the 90s. Without any further ado, here he is. Duncan, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you very much for coming by. I appreciate it.
I drove all the way down from the Sault to be here.
Right off the hop, I would have
Right off the hop.
That.
You're a Sudbury boy. I'm taking you on right away.
That's right. That's right. So I wanted to talk about that right away. You're a Sioux boy. I'm a Sudbury boy. And Northern boys stick together.
Well, let's not go that far. In my world, there was always this big gap between the two cities, mostly because you had that big smokestack that sent the pollution our way.
That's right.
And we weren't very happy about that when that happened. Might have been probably in the 60s sometime.
Is that right?
You
really?
built that damn thing, and
Superstack.
we're still not happy with it.
The Superstack.
Yeah, the Superstack.
Back when it was Inco. Wow. Really? Still not?
My resentments go deep, Brent.
I didn't even know that Sault Ste. Marie was disappointed about that.
It was news at the time, and I, it's not like we needed fuel to build up resentment towards Sudbury because already you were 3 hours closer to Toronto than we were, and that pissed us off.
That's right.
And you were bigger than us, and that pissed us off. And you had a university before we had Algoma,
right? And
that pissed us off. So there was a lot of built up resentment there over the years. Yeah, the best part of this though was North Bay had the in those days they called it the insane asylum.
That's
right.
Remember?
And I think they probably still do. We don't call it that anymore, but
no.
So the three cities were known for certain things, and
that's right.
Yeah.
And they used to call North Bay. When I lived in Sudbury, this is terrible. They used to call it Nut Bar.
Yeah.
So
that's terrible.
It is terrible. Yeah. Well, it was a different time, and it was a different. So it's different. It's different up there. We'll say that. It's different up there.
I visit fairly often. I don't know how often you go back, but it's in my blood. There's no question.
Oh, me too. Like it truly is. I go up there once every summer. I'll go to the island. I have some friends up there. Yeah. First of all, it's God's country, but second, I grew up there. So, it's a special place.
Yeah.
So, Duncan, you are the banjo player, the band leader of Whiskey Jack, and you are also an author.
I am.
You've written a book called My Good Times with Stompin Tom, and it's a fantastic book. It details the relationship that you had with Stompin Tom. The time that you spent on the road, particularly with him in the 90s, because Whiskey Jack was the touring band behind Stompin Tom.
It was one of the touring bands. Tom was very particular about how I described my relationship with him. So Tom historically has been very hands-on where his career is concerned. I don't know exactly when that started, but at some point in time, he just took charge because he wasn't getting what he wanted from the broadcasting industry.
Right.
He wasn't getting what he wanted from media in general. He had a clear vision as to what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a laser beam. He knew exactly what he wanted to convey in his music and in the image Stompin Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I say that in quotes because there was Tom Connors, the family man, and then there was Stompin Tom.
Yeah.
So he didn't get that same cooperation from all the others. So he kind of took control of his career, and he was very particular. I made a point in all my advertising. Whenever I did a show that mentioned his name, I made sure I sent him a copy of the poster to make sure he was okay with how I worded this. So the way I like to describe it, Brent, is when I met Tom in 1990, which was the comeback tour. He had been off the road for 13 years in protest of the Juno thing, etc. I did a whole number of things in my years with Tom. I was the tour manager. I was the guardian of the board.
I remember
because
that.
people would try to steal the board or borrow it or, whatever. So I had to guard the board. I was the beer monger, had to make sure the first tour, it was room temperature golden, which you couldn't get west of the Ontario-Manitoba border. And then he switched to, Molson pissed him off. So then he switched to Moosehead, and they didn't piss him off, so he drank Moosehead right to the end, room temperature. I was banjo player, vocalist, band leader. Over the years, all of these different roles I had.
Yeah.
But I was never the banjo player or the band leader or the anything. There was not the anything. It was Tom had too much control over his career to assign one role to one person.
Oh, really? Well, in my mind, you are the banjo player.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. My wife thinks that too.
Well,
and she's not even a fan of Stompin' Tom. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, they had met, I'm sure, right?
Pardon me?
They had met.
Oh, no. Oh, actually, yes, they did. She was at the 75th birthday party.
Yeah.
She and Lena got along famously, and she would have gotten along fine with Tom. She just didn't like the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's a funny thing, too, because in your book, you said that when you were a younger guy, you had a buddy and you were at his house and he put on Bud the Spud, and you said, what the hell is this? And that was my reaction, too. At university was the first time I'd heard Stompin' Tom, and somebody put it on, and it was almost jokey. And I thought, like, what is this? I'd never heard it before. But then you and I kind of followed the same path. You realized the integrity of the music, and you developed a much kind of broader appreciation for it, considering Tom as a Canadian and the kind of person that he was.
Yeah, and I can't really say that I enjoy his interpretations of much of the material. I really like a well-rehearsed, polished, beautifully produced performance, and Tom never gave us that. Tom was a Woody Guthrie, Wilf Carter troubadour with a guitar on the side of the road playing his songs. So the song, I'm all over the song. I think I'm the biggest fan of Tom's songs that you can have. I've devoted my 8 years of my life to taking those songs and reinterpreting them in a modern, proficient, it's kind of a slick and polished, bringing in the best musicians that Ontario has or Canada has. Some of the virtuosos, so I brought them all together in my band, Whiskey Jack, and we've take those songs and we make them into a modern. Same thing's been done with Woody Guthrie songs. Same things. Actually, you think about it. Even some of the early Bob Dylan songs with just him and a guitar. Many people have taken those songs and made them into something bigger as well. So I think that's kind of the way I've looked at it. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of his voice. I'm just not a big fan of the way he interpreted the songs. I think the other thing that I always remember him saying was, he said, I'm not a great guitar player. I'm a poet who puts music to his lyrics. And the only other performer I can think of that might have said the same thing is Leonard Cohen. Because I always thought, I read in university that first book that he wrote, and he had been famous for poetry up, and this was 1970. What the heck was it? Beautiful Losers, was it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then he kind of became known as a melody man after that, and he became one of the great ones, of course.
Right.
But, so they were lyric guys, right? And then they add the music to the lyric, and all of a sudden it explodes and becomes something. And Tom's lyrics would sometimes, the more I live with some of these songs, I can name a couple of songs that you've never heard of, but we recorded them. And when we recorded them, they kind of came alive and we went, wow, is that what, So I think in the decades to come, years after today, I think maybe in the centuries to come, his songs will be reinterpreted in many, many different ways. And I think generations will really discover just how brilliant this man was. Because anybody who's known him or toured with him or has spent time with him, really appreciate the brilliance of his, virtually uneducated, but you never know it.
Yeah, yeah. And this book was eye-opening to me on a number of fronts in that way. But I want to touch on something that you reminded me of that I didn't know about Tom. So, he preferred lo-fi recordings, we'll say. So the story that you tell is very interesting. You're in a studio and you've got these really great monitors for playback. And the producer says, okay, and Tom says, nobody has speakers like that. What else have you got? So you fished around in a closet and came out with these small speakers. And he says, what are those? Well, they're bookshelf speakers. Nobody has those. And so it's almost like telling a joke. At the very end, you were playing the recordings back through a clock radio speaker because he said, I wanted to hear how it sounds on a boat. My fan is a guy who's fishing on a boat. So I want to know how it's going to sound to that guy. And I thought that was fascinating, but it makes perfect sense knowing what you know about Stompin Tom Connors.
There's another lesson in there too. And I, as a businessman, I always watched Tom, his career, with great interest because he achieved great success by, I think, knowing who his audience was. So I don't care if you're a real estate agent, a plumber, a media guy, a PR guy, whoever you are. Success is more likely to happen if you know exactly who it is you're selling to. Tom knew in the first tour in 1990, we were in the middle of a brutal recession. They were in industries closing and free trade was about to come. So the shift had already, a lot of the jobs had started to go to Mexico. And so we had a 75 city tour in the summer of 1990. And we would go to a community, and I'm thinking to this Brandon, Manitoba and Trail, BC. We didn't have great crowds, mostly because people couldn't afford the tickets, and they couldn't afford the tickets because they had been laid off. So I'm standing at the back of the stage watching the audience. Tom's up there and in the front row, there are people with lumber jackets on, baseball caps. That's his audience. They're crying because in their mind, Tom has come back to save the country. The country's gone to hell in a basket. We're giving everything away to the States and Mexico, and we're left with nothing. So, and this was Tom's message. I mean, he slammed Mulroney from the stage, and it was quite brutal in his assessment. So, yeah, he knew his audience, and that's who he played to. That's who the lyrics are aimed at. And today unfortunately, his audience is diminishing. I don't know how many years my show has left because they are now in their 80s, this audience, 70s and 80s and 90s. And there's a lot fewer of them today than there were 7 years ago when I started this 8 years ago.
I will tell you that when I was at school, there was a massive, massive respect for Tom. We saw him. I think he played. I think we saw him at the Townhouse.
Do you remember the year?
91, maybe.
Well, we played the arena in 1990, the comeback tour, and then he came back in 93, and we were with him in 93. Whiskey Jack was with him, which was the second time he was in Sudbury. Unless he came up and did something, he might have.
I want to say that he played at the school because often bands would come through and play in the cafeteria. It was called the Great Hall. He may have done that. But there was a massive fan base. We knew all the songs. We knew, Bud the Spud, like all of it. Of course, Sudbury Saturday Night, right? But it wasn't just a passing thing. People would play Stompin' Tom music, and it was almost part of our identity. And there were guys who were, 5 years younger than me. So they're in their 40s today still, and they're still listening to Stompin' Tom.
Well, tell them to come to my show because we need more of them.
I will, actually. When this airs, I'm going to reach out to them. Well, they probably will hear it anyway, but I'll bring them along. Yeah.
They'd like that.
They would like that. Yeah, for sure. So what was it like, Duncan, that 1993 Canada Day gig in Ottawa?
So Whiskey Jack had already been around for 15 years at that point. So we had achieved, a certain level of success on the CBC. We were regulars on the Tommy Hunter show. We had toured the country a few times and done some big shows, big festivals, and played for, a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people. But we weren't really prepared for the emotion of this show because, again, think about, It was 93. Montreal had just won the Cup. We were slowly coming out of the recession. We were still in it, but there was starting to be some hope that. And anyway, the energy in the country was kind of charged. It was the perfect day, not a cloud in the sky, beautiful day.
Mm-hmm.
We get out there. For me personally, there was the band leader who was a friend. The producer was a real estate client of mine. So all of a sudden I came out and I knew all these people. Well, Doug Wilde, the keyboard player from the Sioux, was one of the musical directors on the show. And so for me, I come out and it's surreal. It was just not real. And then, by the time we get out there that night, and we had never, you come out, and I don't know if you've ever been to Parliament Hill on Canada Day, but that entire, what do you call it? It's that like area in the middle where
a district, the market.
I don't know. They just said hundreds of thousands of people, and they were all
easily.
And it's on YouTube. I have the show on YouTube, or a performance on YouTube, and they're all waving their flags. And again, there's so much emotion in the air. I don't think I've ever felt. I'm not big on pride of anything, but I don't think I ever felt any more good about Canada than I did on that day. And I thank Tom for that.
Yeah. Fantastic. A great story in the book. I loved it. Gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend, let's talk about your songs.
Yeah.
Now. So you have got 5 songs here that make your skin vibrate. We're going to start with Eddie Arnold. This one's going back to 1963, I think, right? Cattle Call.
Vocally, it's maybe one of the prettiest. He's got one of the. I'm a product of the Perry Como show, the Andy Williams show, Bob Hope, that era. Before Elvis.
Yeah. The big band stuff.
Yeah, the big band stuff. So I'm a product of that, and I had been raised singing in the church and at Kiwanis festivals as a boy soprano. So
yeah,
my ear was pretty finely tuned for. In fact, that's probably why I'm playing music today. But so when I hear Eddie Arnold sing this song, I just stop everything and just try to follow that beautiful voice as it floats through the air in this perfect way. So I think that's why it shakes my foundation. Yeah.
It's terrific. It is, truly.
And he does that falsetto, that male falsetto, that it's since I lost my voice at 11 or whatever, I was a boy soprano in the festivals when I was a kid. And then, a young boy his voice changes, right?
Right.
Well, I never did master my falsetto after that, and it's always been a dream of mine to get my falsetto back. So I'll have to live vicariously through Eddie Arnold's falsetto and enjoy his.
Next, you've got Gordon Lightfoot, Pussy Willis and Cattails. So this is a great song. This is the opening chord for this song.
I don't know what that is. It's a little dissonant, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit weird because the bass strings, it sounds, and then it's almost like 2 chords put together. It's very odd.
I've never tried to play it, Brent. I've always just enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that chord is. I know like the beginning, was it Help, where they just strum the open guitar with, sort of that idea sets the tone, and then it becomes this beautiful lyrical floaty thing. And Gordon, of course, early on, and certainly in my career, he left an impression. Then I got to meet him and sing with him later on in life, and so he had to be one of his songs had to be on this list. And that's one that has survived the years. I've left behind other songs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like his version of Alberta Bound, for example. I like the Good Brothers version or Whiskey Jack's version better, but that Pussy Willow Cattail song, that has stayed with me. I can listen to that any day.
I'm glad you picked this and not, one of the more well-known hits. It's a beautiful song. That cello is so nice.
Billy Joel was interviewed on some podcast a few years ago, and they asked what his influences was, and he said Gordon Lightfoot.
No.
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel?
Yeah. I told Gordon this years later after a show. We were backstage, and I said, by any chance, would it surprise you to say that Billy Joel thought you and he was surprised, but
wow.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I found out a couple of years ago, Billy Joel started out in a heavy metal band.
I did not know that.
Yeah, New York. Weird, eh?
Weird.
Yeah. Longview is next with High Lonesome. I don't know this one.
I'm a good Presbyterian boy. I don't know if you have Presbyterianism in Sudbury or not. I know you're pretty you're an unreligious, a bunch of heathens up there, but in the Sioux in area where we're fairly sophisticated. Sorry, man, I can't help.
Wow.
I know. I told you this runs deep. This hostility towards Sudbury. So I learned to sing partially in the church, and so Whiskey Jack for years, my guitar player for 40 years was a Mennonite, the son of a Mennonite minister,
Okay.
Bob McNiven, and he sang. Growing up, he was in the family band called the Singing McNivens, and his dad, being a Mennonite minister, they would travel from town to town in the northern seaboard of the United States, because Bob was born in Pennsylvania, and they would sing gospel in all of these revivalist tents, essentially. So when Bob joined the band, our passion for gospel music kind of overflowed, and we would go into a church in a town. We'd do a show at the bar at night, but we'd be able to go into the church in the afternoon and sing, a gospel set. So there had to be a gospel song on this.
Yeah.
And that particular song combines a beautiful banjo and Alan O'Brien's great lead singer, beautiful harmony, complex arrangements, a lot of movement in the harmony. It's kind of keeps your interest, and I don't know, I just always want to sing it when I hear it.
I got to give it a listen. Tommy Sands, Dolores Keane, and Vedran Smilovich. Is that right? Is that close?
Sure.
So close.
Tommy Sands is the name here, Irish singer.
I was going to say, is he Irish?
Was asked, they were at this must have been 25 years ago maybe. A producer was put together a Pete Seeger compilation, tribute to Pete Seeger. So it's a double album set. Bruce Coburn's in it, Ani DeFranca's in it, many performers, and they were all asked to take a Pete Seeger song and interpret it. So, and it's all over the map. But quite all of them, I had no idea Pete either wrote the lyrics or the song or the melody of any of these songs, including Where Have All the Flowers Gone. They've taken the bagpipe breaks, solos in this thing, and it's just got this beautiful, I don't know, it really speaks to my Celtic background. My roots are, Scottish, and so it's in the blood. I can't, my cousin plays bagpipes. The band, sometimes his name's David Fremlin. He's a set designer for the movie industry, and he's the bagpiper in Men with Brooms, if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get him sometimes to come on and play Whiskey Jack out as we're starting our show. So bagpipes had to be on that list.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your last song, Duncan, is I Love This Guy, Leon Russell. This is a great pick too. Rollin' in My Sweet Baby's Arms. I love Tightrope. I love
Masquerade.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Leon Russell has played with everyone from the Stones.
Has inspired everybody.
Right. Elton John.
Elton John said he wouldn't be doing what he is doing today if it hadn't been for Leon Russell. Yeah.
What a statement that is.
What a statement, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So just fantastic. And we were talking about people who don't get their due as musicians. In my mind, Leon Russell is one of those.
Well, he was a session musician back in the day, and he played on Mamas and Papas and Beach Boys and all of these. And in the meantime was this very talented songwriter and performer. And this particular song comes from his country album from, I think, probably 69 or 70, 71, maybe. It's called Hank Wilson's Back.
Yeah.
So this came out right around that time that there's another album called Will the Circle Be Unbroken that came by Nitty Gritty Dirt Band that came out probably 72. So it was right around that time when the old country people, the Flatt and the Scruggs and the Roy Acuffs, got together with the young country performers in Eastern and Western United States, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and they kind of merged musically, and they came up with Will the Circle Be Unbroken. And that catapulted bluegrass music into the upper echelons. And all of a sudden, Flatt and Scruggs were on TV, Jimmy Martin. They were all making money for the very first time in their careers. Mother Maybelle, goes back to the Carter family, goes back to the 30s and 40s. And when the producer of Will the Circle Be Unbroken knocked on her door that day and handed her a gold record, she had totally forgotten she had done that album. She didn't know.
Wow.
What am I getting this for? And then she was totally taken aback because she just was so far from the Nashville scene. And It was such a great thing that they were able, not unlike actually, you hear about Keith Richards talk about the old blues performers that would come to Britain and they would idolize these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Beatles being Chuck Berry, the relationship, the adulation they had for Chuck Berry. It's sort of like the same idea. The two generations coming together and sort of helping each other. It's very, very cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
This song in particular is an old traditional song, right?
An old bluegrass song, yes.
Do you know the origin?
I don't.
This is it's funny. It's like an old British war song. It's developed from a song called, I think it was called Bang Bang Lulu, like a very directly crude song, but it was a traditional song. And I think that this song was kind of worked up from that generations and generations later.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Flatt and Scruggs made it famous, at least in my generation, because of I think the show they did at Carnegie Hall. They released an album of Flatt and Scruggs at Carnegie Hall that still holds up today, and that's where I first heard it. And then Leon adds a bit of country flavor to it. Still banjo.
Yeah.
That whole album, that whole Hank Wilson's Back album is just one of those interpretations of songs that takes old corny country music and makes it a little more modern and accessible. I think it becomes more accessible to a bigger audience when this happens.
Yeah, it broadens the scope of it.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, some great songs here, my friend. Thank you very much.
I could have chosen, I'm sure you hear this all the
more?
time, but 50 more. But
what would your next one be? What would number 6 be?
Honestly, Brent, there's too many to even. The national anthem. How's that? I don't know. I'm kidding. I have no idea.
How about Stompin' Tom? What's if you could have one song on here, Stompin' Tom, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. Again, just hearkening back to the fact that I don't enjoy his ballads so much, his more recent ballads, but I really have to go back to the very, very beginning when he stood in that recording studio with him and his guitar and his foot. I don't think he had the boot in those days, but he recorded just him and a guitar. Mm-hmm. There's a whole album. In fact, he might have done it at the radio station in Timmins. That's right. That's Raw Tom. It's some of the early songs that he wrote. Little Wah Wah was one of them. Mm-hmm. I'll take that over any other Tom album that he did, except for the one he recorded with us, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, 1993.
That was called Dr. Stompin' Tom, eh?
Right, Dr. Stompin' Tom, eh? Yeah. There's some songs on there that we do in our show because they were not written for us, but the music, the instrumentation and the style of music that we play, which is highly vocalized. There's a lot of 3-4 part harmony, and so the songs that Tom gave us to perform on that CD with him lent themselves beautifully to our style. So today I can put on Blue Moon Away, for example, which is on that, and I can hear Tom singing Blue Moon Away to Whiskey Jack. Like we were the supporting band, and he was singing to us, even though we were playing to him. But so that's one of the highlights of my career, being able to hear that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Now that's a good segue into what you're doing now. So where can we go and see you play? Because you've got, it's the stories and songs of Stompin' Tom, but Whiskey Jack is, I think that you're out there. So where can we come and see you?
Yeah. Well, this is airing, probably in February of 2023. We're doing one Stompin' Tom show in the spring in Southern Ontario. That's at the Moonshine Cafe. That's priming the pump for a big Eastern Canada tour. So I think that's on the 25th or 26th of April. If they go to helloouthere.ca, that'll take them to my website. And then we leave the next day for the East Coast, and we're doing 10 days on the East Coast. We come back, and then we're doing Douglas, my musical partner, Douglas John Cameron. He and I have a duo called Doogie and Dunn. We're busy all summer doing our thing as a duo. And then in the fall, we have 3 nights at the Orangeville Theatre, a long run there.
Oh, wow.
We have Meaford, Tweed, Bancroft. These are all theater shows with multimedia. I've written a show and put together a really nice visual, audio, multimedia package that will go with the show. It's a little more scripted than what we usually do. Tom's concerts were always, he called them kitchen parties. Unlike most, big stars, he encouraged the audience to communicate with him. So there's some of the shows that I recorded, you can hear Tom try to talk over the audience, but they're all yelling out, "Tom, you remember me from the 60s? We had a beer back in, or it would have played Margot's car, So there's all this conversation going on. He eats that up. So our show has that tone to it. And we didn't want to make it too formal. It has to have that informal Stompin Tom kind of playfulness. It's very playful. No pretense, Brent. There is no pretense in anything this guy did, and there's no pretense in our show. It's all about one thing, and that's to have a good time, to go home with a smile on your face and have a few laughs and be able to sing along to some of these songs. And I get paid for this. It's amazing.
Isn't it?
It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing.
Great. I love it. That's great. I will definitely be in attendance at some point somewhere.
You're on my email list. I'll put you there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. And we'll talk about this after the show wraps, because I definitely want to come and see you at Moonshine if I can. So, yeah. Thank you very much for coming by today. It's been great to meet you in person and have a great chat.
Thank you very much.
And you've got all these other songs. Come back and we'll talk about 5 more.
We got CDs coming out, so we'll do it for sure. I'll bring my partner, Douglas John, next time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You guys can actually do a number if you want. You've got guitar.
Hey, we could do that.
Yeah, we do
Absolutely.
That. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. This has been No Sleep Till Sudbury with Brent Jensen and my very special guest, Mr. Duncan Fremlin. Till next time, folks, take good care.
Brent Jensen is the best-selling author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. All titles available in stores and on Amazon worldwide.